Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. As always, I am honored, excited, and incredibly geeked to get started with another Power to Fly Chat and Learn virtual event. Now, before we dive in here and introduce you to our speaker and get to all the good stuff, I just want to go over a couple quick housekeeping items. This will be especially important if today is your first Power to Fly event. And if that's the case, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you today. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers, okay? I love seeing all of your familiar names and faces and avatars in the chat. So please, please feel free to chime in. Now, like you can see up on the slide in front of me, participation is key. We want to make sure that you all, especially everybody who took their time out of their day to be here with Power to Fly and Rowe Price Live, we want to make sure we reward you for that. So if you want to participate, very much encouraged. You're always welcome to turn your cameras on if you'd like to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But truly, y'all, no need to be Instagram perfect, okay? I'm on day 3 of the dry shampoo prayer. So truly does not matter whether you are coming to us from the corner office or your living room couch. We just want to meet you where you are today. Now, if you don't want to turn on your camera, that's okay. You can always still participate in the chat. I see we've got a bunch of people starting to chime in there, and my buddy Ria is in there sharing links as well. I just want to call out in case you'd like to. Dive into that chat and let us know where you're joining from. I'm always really eager to see how far our global audience spreads. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So if you'd like to share where you're coming in from or whose land you're on, you're absolutely welcome to. So far, we've got greetings from, let's see, Sylvania, Ohio, Barrie, Ontario, DMV, Lansing, Michigan, Houston, Texas, Huntsville, Alabama, the Netherlands, okay, New Jersey, College Park, Maryland, Santa Fe, Declevin, Latham. Oh my gosh, y'all, Philly, they're coming in too fast for me to read them, y'all. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today. We love, love, love hearing from y'all, so thank you so much. Now, we are recording today's event, and what that means for you is you don't have to take notes. You get to relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with Tracee, and not have to worry if you missed a reference somebody lists or a resource or anything. So what that means is in about 3 to 5 business days, Power to Fly is going to email everybody that registered, whether you attended today's chat or not. And y'all will get an email with a link from us where you can rewatch this recording when we post it on powertofly.com. Now, let's say that Tracee says something today just like mind-blowing, paradigm-shifting, world-changing. You cannot wait 4 to 5 business days to tell a friend or a coworker or a relative. You don't have to. You can always head over to our YouTube channel. We're going to share links for all of this in the chat thread as we go. And you can check out our recordings there. Today's recording will probably be posted by end of day. There's also a small segment of some of our kind of best of playlists there as well, if you want to check out some of our other events. But truly, y'all, the main event and all of that value, it's on the website, truly. That's where you can find all of our resources, everything from the beginning of Lunch and Learns with Lauren Haggerty all the way through today. All of it is housed on powertofly.com. Now, the other thing I want to highlight for y'all is to write in the chat. So if you have questions and you want to be, you want to participate in today's event, please, please, please slam those questions into the chat. All right. We want to hear from y'all. You can also take a look at the, what am I trying to go? Oh, yeah, put your questions into the chat. And if you have any other questions, anybody else wants to ask questions, please, y'all, please feel free to submit them at any point. Ask early, ask often. That is the best way to make sure that your questions get addressed today. Now, I will remind y'all, we do ask our attendees to stay on mute for the duration of the main stage today, but truly, y'all, keep that chat active and hopping. Now, the other thing I want to remind y'all about before we dive on into introductions is just a real quick look at our code of conduct, okay? This is a bunch of legalese. It basically just boils down to don't be a jerk, okay? We'll just treat everybody from a place of kindness and respect, and it's never steered me wrong so far, so let's just go with that. Now, if you have any questions on this, you want any more details on our code of conduct, just email us, hi@powertofly.com, or you can DM me in the chat. You can find my name, Meg Alexander, in the dropdown. That'll also work if you have a question that you want raised, but you want to be kept anonymous. So no worries there. Just please feel free to send it along. Now, our speaker today is here on behalf of Rowe Price. Now, I'm pretty sure I don't need to tell anybody who Rowe Price is. Name recognition is strong with this one as well. But I do want to encourage y'all, if there's anything that you hear today about T. Rowe Price that kind of sparks your interest and you want to learn some more, take a look at this company page. Okay, so this is what T. Rowe Price's company page looks like on powertofly.com. There's some really great tools and stuff in here, but the couple things that I want to highlight are this. All right, so big QR code right over here. That's the one that you're going to follow if you want to join T. Rowe Price's follow network. So it'll take you to the page that you're looking at. And that way you can click this big pink button right there. There, guys, that says follow. Okay. Clicking that button does some great things for you, but effectively what it does is it works like your friend who already works at T. Rowe Price. So tapping that button means that Power to Fly is going to tell T. Rowe Price that you are interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. So it's a really, really great option if you are actively seeking right now, but maybe don't see a specific job rec for T. Rowe Price that you're like, that one, I have to apply to that one right now. Okay, so that's a really good option. The secondary thing it does is allows Power to Fly to take some of the weight off of you in your job search. So when you tap that follow button, we are going to let you know when T. Rowe Price posts new roles. So that way you don't have to keep coming back and rechecking job boards. There's no need to memorize those things, y'all. Work smarter, not harder, okay? Let Power to Fly take some of the weight off of you there. Now, the other thing I want to highlight is this other QR code over here on the side. That's where you can connect directly with T. Rowe Price. We'll give you a little bit more information on that QR code as well as we go on through today's event. So just a quick review, make sure you check out the overview. That's going to have stuff where, about company culture, sometimes benefits info is there. Events and is going to be more stuff like this. If there's, registration pages open already for upcoming events, they'll be there, recordings, all kinds of good stuff like that. And then last but not least, this jobs tab, that's the one that people are always really eager about. That is where you can search for and apply to roles right from powertofly.com. Just make sure that as you are applying to roles, you make sure that you are fully submitting each step. So that way you can make sure that your application process is absolutely complete. All right, now I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest speaker today. Now, Tracee Hamlett is a senior project manager in data strategy and programs. Now, she's been with T. Rowe Price for over 5 years, and in her tenure, Tracee has managed projects in enterprise security and technology services, infrastructure, and governance. Now, in her previous role, Tracee managed the Technology Policy Exception Program, and she managed remediation projects that were identified from an internal or external audits. Now, recently, Tracee was promoted to the Chief Data Office as the Senior Project Manager of Data Strategy and Programs. Now, in this new role, she's going to be planning, executing, and monitoring data initiatives. Tracee is a champion of DEI and is the Program Manager for Black Technology Forum, or BTF. BTF serves as a dedicated program focused on equitable opportunities and inclusion for Black associates in technology at T. Rowe Price. Tracee, I am incredibly excited to get to welcome you to the stage today. Is there anything else that you would like our audience members to know about you?
Thank you so much, Meg. I'm so excited to be a part of this and to share everything with everyone today. Let's see, anything else I can share? I will start with my background in project management. I started over 20 years ago, and that's a little scary when you think about that. And I've managed projects from warehouse and supply chain, web projects to POS upgrades, software upgrades, mainframe upgrades and replacements, and then of course, compliance and policy projects supporting GDPR, HIPAA, FERPA, and PCI. So a whole gamut of projects that I've been able to help execute and have success with.
Excellent. We love to hear it. All right. So just to highlight here and kind of remind everybody in level set. So today we're going to be talking about unity in diversity, a DEI lens on project management within T. Rowe Price. Now, just as a quick reminder, y'all, we are going to be here to talk about DEI initiatives as well as T. Rowe Price, but we're not going to be doing hiring today. So if there's anything that interests you or that sparks your interest about T. Rowe Price and you want to learn more, that's awesome. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat. Pardon me. And then we can make sure that we put you in touch with people at T. Rowe Price to hopefully, explore those curiosities even further. So, all right, Tracee, to get us started, I want to know what motivated you to become a champion for DEI, especially within project management. And how has T. Rowe helped support you in sharing your ideas and perspectives to further this goal?
Oh, thank you. That's a very good question. I am very passionate about championing DE&I because I hope to be what my younger self needed. So, growing up in corporate or just in a role, you always look for mentors or peers. And I hope to be a better mentor, a better peer, a better friend, a better leader, simply because of my involvement in DE&I. Rowe Price has supported my growth in two ways. One, because we have such great diversity groups such as Valor that supports our veterans, or WAVE that supports our women, or Pride that supports empowering our LGBTQ plus associates. It's opened my eyes. Like, I'm able to learn and understand things that I did not or would not have been known or been exposed to before. And because of my involvement in any of those groups, I then had the opportunity to be the program manager for BTF, or Black Technology Forum. And that has been so very fulfilling, again, because of my why.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. Do you think that you got into this field strictly for that reason, or do you think that there were other reasons that led you into this industry?
Into the DE&I space or project management?
I'd say project management to start with.
I kind of fell into project management. I was doing project management before the title of project management was a thing, right? I, um, I started out being an email administrator, managing email for Lotus Notes and CC Mail. That was before Microsoft came along. And in doing that, I became an administrator. Then they changed the title to coordinator. And then after coordinator, then the title became project manager. So I kind of fell into it, I guess. And then after getting into it, it was something that I loved. It gives me such an opportunity to learn different things. I don't have to be the expert about it, but I still get to learn about it and to help a team, a company, a group do an upgrade or do something new or make changes. And it's very fulfilling.
I like that. I think it's always really interesting to find what directions people took that led them to where they get, that led them to where they are versus how many times, like Allison's chiming in. So many of us fell into project management because who goes to school for it?
Right.
I have like 6 or 8 friends who are all in insurance, and that is the running joke is that no one goes to school for insurance. Nobody at like 6 years old is like, I want to be a claims adjuster. They just don't. And so so you get a group full of people who not necessarily don't want to be there. That's not what we're going for, but like people that didn't plan for this for years and years. And personally, based on what I've seen, that makes for a much more dynamic group because it's not a bunch of people that were thinking like for years and years, this is the goal. And it's like, no, if the goal is going to change every so often, then we all have to change along with it. So I very much appreciate this.
It also allows you to tap into a passion, right? Because you fell into it and you continue with it, you start finding different passions within that role.
Yes, absolutely. Y'all, I want to hear from you as well. Give us a +1 in the chat if you also fell into or are kind of not quite unsure how you came into be in project management. Francois chiming in saying nowadays a lot of APs are also being expected to act as PMs for shorter projects. So that's a very good point, Francois. Thank you. Sifon fell into it. Same with Sophia, Wandy. Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. Kenya, Tamika, Eileen, Corinne. Yeah. All right. So we're all in good company here for sure.
Right.
Okay. When you look back at the start of your career in project management, what is one thing you wish you had known at that time that you did not learn until later?
One? Oh, wow.
I know. Start with one.
Easy question, but hard to identify just one. I guess if I had to pick one, it would be to be yourself. Because personally, starting in a role, you look at what other people are doing and you may try and emulate what you see because it's working for them or you think that's how it's supposed to be. But honestly, you have to find your own footing and then figure out what works for you. So, being yourself And if I slide another one in there, I'd have to say, don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? There are no mistakes, only lessons learned. So those would be my two.
I like those. I think those are really good ones to make. So when it came for you, when it comes to like, being yourself, was it a situation of you kind of faking the funk till you made it? Or do you think it was a situation of you like holding back parts of yourself?
Maybe a little bit of both. I
Yeah.
think it all depend on the type of manager that I had and making sure that I was supported enough to be myself. But then if I didn't know, of course, you're going to fake it until you figure it out or fake it until you can make it, whichever term you want to go with.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I always appreciate asking this question because it's kind of surprising the number of times that people think both, right? They think that not only do they have to like hold back certain parts of themselves or not really, bring their full self to work, but then they also feel like they're not enough in other areas. And so it's like, well, I have to be very businessy. People have to take me seriously in business. And it's like, yeah, but also you're putting on a persona that's going to be
Mhm.
hard to maintain anyway. So why not just maintain yourself and
Right.
then worry about the rest of how, kind of how that shakes out later. Granted, obviously
Exactly.
coming from a very resourced perspective, and there's a lot of different ways to interpret this advice. So I very much appreciate all of y'all chiming in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have somebody who's looking to pivot, especially if they want to pivot from, like, let's say, recruitment into
Mhm.
project management, what advice would you have for someone who's trying to make that change?
Well, if they're in recruitment, I would say that they don't have although they don't have the title of project manager or project management, they're already doing it.
Mhm.
Um, they're managing different projects within that space, within their job. And so pivoting to project management should be fairly, I'm going to say easy, but it can be, right? It all
Mhm.
depends on um, what type of project management role you're looking to do. Like, do you want to get into project management within HR or somewhere else?
Yeah.
And then there's also the different methodologies and approaches to project management that you can get into. Um, and depending on your company, they may be focused on more one over another. So that could also drive you. I think there's so many resources out there you can take a look at to get a flavor of what the different project management methodologies and approaches are out there and look at those and apply them to what you were currently doing and see which one fits.
Okay. I like that a lot. Are there any certifications or anything that people should know, especially if they're coming from an area of the business that does not have to do with DEI or traditionally has not?
Mhm, mhm. Great question. Yes. So there are many certifications, as you can imagine, your PMP, there's CAPM. If you take a look at Project Management Institute or Scrum Alliance or Six Sigma, they all offer different certifications that you can take and use. And most companies who are looking for certified project managers will accept any of those certifications. And again, based off of what type of projects you're managing, could determine what type of certification they being the company is looking for you to have.
Okay, great. And thank you y'all for chiming in here as well. Francois chiming in saying one of the best PM teachers I know is Tracee, I'm going to mispronounce this, Civic from Eat Your Career. So thank you, Francois, for chiming in
Mm.
there. Stephanie's asking, what about a PMI/ACP?
Yes, that's a good one as well. That's a good one as well. I saw that come through. And if I chimed in on a leader or a speaker in PMI is Carl Pritchard.
Okay.
Fantastic, fantastic.
All right. Okay, we did have a lot of people that wanted to talk about integrating DEI into projects. So this person wanted to know, how do you incorporate DEI into everyday project management responsibilities? So what does this look like for you? How do you do this in your daily life?
So project management although you're managing, I hate to use the double word, projects, right? It's all about people too. I think that's the first, and that's the first rule of project management, is like being a people person, understanding who your team is or who you're working with. And that then helps you to continue to create a culture where your team and members that you're working with feel seen and heard, and cultivates open communication, and your team members feel trusted, and safe to maybe tell you things that aren't going well. I think that is really how it's incorporated. Understanding that everyone has something, everyone has something going on, and it's about being open, removing that fear of failure. Usually when you're working within a team, some people, you mentioned earlier about holding yourself back because you're not sure, or maybe you don't know if you're going to be accepted. So I think knowing your team, promoting that others feel seen and heard.
I think that's a really good one. I like that a lot. Let's see. We did get a question from the chat asking if there's any specific tools or resources you recommend for project managers who want to enhance their DEI practices.
Tools. I read a lot. And most of my DE&I practices aren't coming from PM tools, if that makes sense. One of my favorite books is Expect to Win, Carla Harris. And my favorite PM space for tools is PMI, or Project Management Institute, and Scrum Alliance.
Okay. All right, y'all. I grabbed the link for the first book that you listed as well, and we'll try and grab the links for the second one too. Thank you so much, Tracee. Okay, so if you are trying to promote an inclusive and equitable project environment during all phases of a project lifecycle, are there any strategies that people should maintain or should try and keep in mind to make this a successful enterprise?
What's the question again?
Yeah. All right. So if you're trying to promote an inclusive and equitable project environment, so you want everyone to feel like they are absolutely part of the problem, dear Lord, part of the solution, and they are on board and being thought of, what can people do to make sure that they are promoting this during all phases of that project lifestyle? So let's start with that. So of the different, like, if you're talking about different phases within the project lifestyle, how does that engagement change across those phases?
Right. That's for sure open communication, right? Setting the tone for that communication, and do team building and networking, celebrating and recognizing achievements throughout is very important.
So for your teams, once you obviously, like, setting achievements and setting goals is pretty straightforward. What does it look like to celebrate those achievements or those goals once they're achieved? Like, how does that look on your teams?
Celebrating, it could be simple or extravagant. It could simply be letting the team know what their teammate has done. A lot of times we do things, and I call it working out loud. Other people aren't aware of what someone else is working on or what they've accomplished or achieved. It could be as simple as having a Zoom background in your meeting that has balloons, and you're sharing that information. So I think it's sharing their successes openly to the team, and letting everyone know that what they did and how you're proud of their success.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Y'all, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. Have there been any instances where you were recognized for success that you felt were particularly, like, successful? You know what I mean? Because, like, there's places, right, where it's like, oh yeah, it's Taco Tuesday and everybody gets their tacos. But then there's other places where it's like, oh, great, and here's a list of the people that did their things this week. And it's like, well, that
Mhm.
nothing says celebration like a list. So, yeah, if y'all have seen this happen, or if you've, had a really good example of it, in your groups, please share, let us know. Ooh, this is a good one. Allison had chimed in asking, are there strategies that you've tried or implemented since moving into a hybrid work model to rebuild inclusivity and equity for remote team members? It's a really good
Mm.
one. Okay, so
Mhm.
how about your teams? Do you work with hybrid teams
Mhm.
at all? Do you work with people that are working remotely? And how does that work for you as a project manager?
Great question. I think working remotely, you have to communicate more. Working and being in the office, you are able to catch someone easily by walking down the halls or your transitions throughout the day. So we use Teams, we leverage Teams, and I think chatting on Teams more than less is effective. Also, sending the email. Sometimes you don't want to send an email because you think it's a quick conversation. People don't pick up the phone as much as they used to. So you have to really use the tools that you have. So remote teams is making sure that we have our own separate teams chat, or we're having chats with one another. I don't think you can do it too much, but also respect the red dot or the busy, when people are in meetings, to make sure that you aren't, impeding on their meeting. Because again, if you were in the office and the door was closed, you saw someone in there, you wouldn't go in, you would, respect that space. But I think it's about being purposeful in your communication, especially with everyone being remote.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's a really good example for that. All right, so we had a couple kind of like random questions thrown in here. Katie had asked, is there any way to gain project management experience? So let's talk about this.
Mhm.
There's tons of ways to get experience in different things without having the title. So if
Mhm.
someone wants project management experience, but they're not sure how to get it, what kind of things can they look for? Or what sorts of things are project management related that they might not really realize that's what it is?
So if I take it back to the recruiter question that we had earlier, as a recruiter, and I'm just making up stuff, I don't know if this is what really happens. As a recruiter, if you have a role in managing incoming employees, then you have your task that you have to do to get those incoming employees onboarded, right? That's a project. That's a whole project to make sure that they're onboarded properly. They have the right. I'm assuming they're aligned with their manager, device management, all of that's included in onboarding. And again, I'm making some of this up because I don't know everything that's included from a recruiter's onboarding perspective. But if you take a look at that and you think your inception to completion of that project, and you look at that and you put it into a framework of a project, you could easily list it on your resume, or say that, or shift it and say that you manage in recruitment or HR, you manage the project of onboarding new employees.
I like that a lot. I think it is important that we kind of seek out these opportunities or ways to
Mhm.
talk about these achievements or these activities. Because it's really easy to kind of get siloed and think like, well, this is what I did. It's like, but there's transferable skills in there if you just kind
Right,
of peel things back a little bit.
right.
All right, so we had a follow-up question. This one came from Selena. Selena says, I would like to pivot from customer success manager in the health tech area or health tech field to be a client experience manager with T Rowe. What are some of the transferable skills that I could highlight? I think this is a really excellent question. Are there any transferable skills that you've seen be most effective when if you're trying to bring someone into being like a client experience manager?
It for sure would be customer service, right?
Yeah.
Customer centric, and your customers, whether they're internal or external, those are always transferable skills. Um, Understanding how to communicate to your customers is big because customer A may not like a follow-up email versus customer B might. So taking the time to know communication styles and expectations.
That's a good one. All right. Now one of the major things that we talk about on any Power to Fly chat are some of the challenges that people might encounter as they're, trying to try some like flex a new skill or learn something else or, shift to a different part of the business. What are some of the most common challenges that you have seen when you're trying to implement DEI initiatives?
Biggest challenge is trust. Because we're talking about DE&I, people hold that close to their chest, like that's personal. And if I am not cultivating open communication, trusted communication, making people feel seen or heard, and they don't feel like they can be themselves, trust is always going to be the biggest challenge.
Have you found any good mechanisms for trying to engender that trust in people, especially when like they don't know you from Adam, they've only just met you? How can you try and impart that or make them feel like they can trust you?
I think it's the continuous networking. I meet you for the first time and you're part of my team. We will not just meet simply because we have a meeting every Thursday at 10 o'clock. Schedule some one-on-one time to understand who the members of your team, who they are, what they like. As you saw, I'm a big Marvel fan, so I'm going to ask that question. What's your favorite Marvel movie? And that will bring that takes down that wall or that barrier of someone who really doesn't feel like they can have a open conversation with you. I think it's very important to continue networking outside of just your normal work meetings.
I like that a lot. And it kind of goes to the fact that we talk about personal branding a lot, and it's something that kind of gets a knock, right? Because it's this idea of like, well, what's your personal brand? Like, okay, I'm not a corporation, all right? Like I pay taxes. So, I think it is really important that when we're talking about this kind of branding, it is about vulnerability, right? It's about sharing things with people and opening yourself up so that they feel more comfortable to open up to you. Whether they need to or not in the moment is completely separate, but you want to make sure that you are making that vulnerability possible in other people. So I think that's a really good point to highlight. There's, kind of keep networking, because when we're talking about networking, we're really just talking about making friends, right? We're just talking about actually talking to other people and not just, hey, do you have the, TTR reports that I said I needed?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay. This person wanted to know, how do you navigate power dynamics when you're engaging in stakeholder management and trying to manage upwards? All right, so this is a ton of words in here that mean like 16 other things. So let's kind of brass tacks it here.
Yeah.
All right, so you're trying to get buy-in from people who you are not in charge of, to really become engaged in DEI and understanding how they have a lot more power in the situation, but you need them to get on board with what you're doing. So if you were trying to navigate this, how have you handled this in the past?
I take it back to that networking piece a little bit, because what's the goal of that stakeholder, right? What's their interest, and what does good look like for them, right? So trying to understand that, also understanding their communication style. Again, I go back to that because you may have someone that's more numbers specific. They want to see the statistics, and that's their love language, so to speak. So if that's how they communicate, then that's what I want to present to them so they understand, and they get exactly what's being presented, and they're able to ask questions that we both feel are fair enough for the situation.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point there, right? Is that you need to be trying to ask questions that are applicable, that are helpful. Because I mean, it's really easy to just start throwing around stuff and realizing like, oh, well, we're poking a lot of holes in something and we're not actually making anything that's going to substitute for that.
Also, understanding what their resistance is, right? If you
Mhm,
understand what the resistance may be, if there is to the situation, then that'll help with solutioning as well.
mhm. Have you been in situations where you had to try and figure out what that resist was? Or do you think people are generally pretty forthcoming when you're like, why are we not making this happen?
Um, yeah, yes, I have. It's a little bit of both. Like sometimes people will read the room first, right? They'll wait and see what others say, and that might either change their thought or give them other questions to have. So I've seen it both ways.
Okay. All right. We did get a question. This one's a little bit more brass tacks, from Cynthia. Cynthia wants to know, in your experience, are most employers requiring project managers to be certified?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I've seen some who are not, who don't require but want you to have experience. So if they're not asking for certifications, they want you to have that. And you can get experience. Again, you can go to any of the PM sites and do webinars and get an understanding of what that project management methodology may be, and see how it applies to what you're currently doing.
I like that. And thank you for responding to that one too, because I know Shalija had just asked in the chat, how can you switch into PM with no experience? I mean, you can have experience. We talked
Yeah.
about this a little bit earlier, right? About how there are certain tasks and certain function like job functions that very easily transfer in ways that you wouldn't necessarily expect. So Shailja, if that's something that interests you, make sure you go back and rewatch. I think it was in the first like 10 minutes or so of today's chat. We covered that question as well. Let's see here. Okay. Kaushiki had a really great question. They had said, how do you manage to switch projects from one domain over your career, like supply chain, into a different domain like IT infrastructure? The whole cycle can be different, and companies look completely different, look differently at people who have the same experience. So let's talk about this. If you are used to an entire life cycle in one area and you're trying to transfer it, what should people understand?
Managing a project, whether it's in supply chain or software upgrades, requires the same level of discipline of understanding who your customer is. And so switching over or going from one to another shows your versatility in managing projects. It shows you're able to easily pivot to learning what is needed. And sometimes as a program manager, you have multiple projects that you have to understand what's going on in, and they may be different. So I don't think that it's looked at as a problem because you've shifted. If anything, I think it's an advantage that you have over someone else, that you have that ability.
Good answer, y'all. Very good answer. Okay, so if we are, let's just say, like, kind of in our daily lives through the normal flow of work, how can we each make sure that we are practicing and implementing DEI values on a daily basis?
Great question. That would be being open to differences,
Okay.
being open to different cultural backgrounds, norms, different communication styles, um, and leaning in to ask the questions. Like if there's a holiday that a coworker celebrates that you don't know or understand, ask. I'm sure they would be happy to explain it and share it with you, and really leaning in to find out how to support your peers, your coworkers on what they're passionate about and what they believe in.
Mhm. I like that a lot. But I think it also goes to it definitely needs to be said that, as you're doing this, operating from a place of curiosity is never a bad thing. You just have to make sure you're doing it in a tactful, kind way,
Right.
right?
Right.
So like, yeah, you might be incredibly curious about why that person, wears a headscarf to work.
Right.
It's not okay to start off with like, but why are you in a headscarf though? Like,
Right.
maybe, we'll maybe soften it a little bit. Ask from a place of curiosity of like, oh, that's interesting. I've never worn a headscarf to work. Is there a reason that you wear yours? Like, super basic. All right. We did have a really good question that I thought was a good kind of touch point in here. Where did it go? Oh, there we go. Aviva had asked, how does a company define diversity? More specifically, what are the criteria? So let's talk about this. In the
Mhm.
Rowe Price case, if y'all are trying to figure out, we need more diversity on this team, how do you address that? How is that something that y'all assess?
So if you need more diversity on a team, I guess I'd have I'd have a little more questions to ask about that. Like if you felt like it was a hiring situation, then that might be your talent acquisition team that you would go to. If you felt like it was um, just your general team, you mixed up of different people, developers, project managers, then maybe it's going to your manager and asking that question about diversity. Are we going to get more diverse talent? Who can we talk to about having more diverse talent?
Yeah.
And again, that just goes with, being yourself and being open to have that conversation, because it doesn't have to come from a negative place at all. It's just what you've noticed, what you've seen, what you're seeing come in, and what you would like, how you would like to grow.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it also kind of it makes sense that these are some of the questions that are asked because traditionally speaking, I feel like if you are of a certain generational letter, you probably were not taught to talk about these kinds of things, right? You don't talk about the ways in which people are different. We talk about how we're all the same, and so we all deserve to be treated equally, and blah blah blah. And that's lovely. It's also a bit short-sighted, as we know now. And so I think it can feel like you're talking about something inappropriate when actually we're not. We're just talking about something that we were told not to discuss because it wasn't great for the status quo, basically. But when we're talking about thinking like, oh yeah, I think this team could use some more diversity. Okay, what you're actually talking about are where are the ideas coming from? Who are we listening to within the group? Are we coming at this all from a very specific and very shared place of a very similar upbringing, a very similar educational background? What are we looking at here, and what are the voices that are not being heard at this table that do need to be heard?
Mhm.
So if you are trying to, ascertain or kind of assess your team's own like diversity quotient, maybe take a look at that. See, start breaking down some of the ways that people have taken different paths to get where they are now and what those different paths are likely to help them bring to the table that other people might not have. All right. Oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was saying that's a great point. It's also something that you should bring up when you are interviewing as well, right? What's diversity look like? And you're right, depending on your letter determines whether or not you may or may not ask that question.
Yeah, very true. Okay, we did have a lot of people that were curious about how they can diffuse conflicts, especially if it's coming up because because you're going and looking for people from different walks of life, different educational backgrounds, different thought backgrounds, all kinds of stuff. You are most likely gonna have conflict that comes about as a result of this because people in general, this is how we all act. Do you have any tips for helping to diffuse conflicts like that? Especially when by bringing in people from different backgrounds, they're going to have a difference of opinion on things.
I would say understanding when to do a parking lot, right? Depending on when the conflict comes up and where you are may determine how your approach is to it. Making sure you have the right people in the room to help you with it. And also making sure people understand that everyone deserves an opportunity to share how they feel. Now, again, I'm speaking with an example of it being a respectful share, right? So, um, shared that way, you have to help strengthen trust and strengthen and build trust. And in doing that, there's a time, a place, and a way to address the conflict that may arise. And if you can't talk through it in that meeting, or after that meeting, if it requires additional people to come in, then I would suggest doing that. Also, mentorship is just like if you have a mentor, chatting with your mentor prior to or after that meeting to see if you should look at it from a different perspective. And most times people just want to feel heard, be heard, and feel and be acknowledged. So I think that goes a very long way. Again, back to team building, right? Knowing and understanding how people may perceive something could also help prevent the conflict if you know that person on that team.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely agreed. All right, let's see. What other questions do we have? We have about 15 minutes left, so if y'all have questions, please feel free to get them in here. Oh, okay. This person wants to know, what are some DEI trends within your industry or project management trends that you have seen?
Trends like I'm not sure what they mean by trends. So
Yeah, I'm not sure. If this is your question, chime in here. Maybe there's one in particular that you're thinking of.
yeah.
Let's see. Oh, okay, this one's good. Carla had asked, could you describe a time when you failed and how you approached that failure as a project manager?
Mhm. Wow, yeah, sticks out like a thumb, even though it was years ago. So I had a very difficult stakeholder, two actually, who did not agree on whether or not we should move forward with this software upgrade. And it just so happened to be an upgrade of our tax system for the company. And so my stakeholder was saying we were ready to go. The comptroller said no. And I was in the middle. Very difficult, very what do you do? So we the three of us sat down and we talked it out again, trying to understand what good looked like for both of the stakeholders and why one was resistant to moving forward. It really had nothing to do with me, but I felt like I had failed because I wasn't able to move forward. We did not move forward, and we waited about another month or so before we did this upgrade, and I felt like I had failed. So I had to take my emotions out of that and realize that it had nothing to do with me, and it was the expectations that the two leaders had on what good looked like.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, right? Is to be able to kind of peel back and say, like, all right, when we say success, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to this group?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of the same ideas and the same technique that you talked about when it comes to conflicts within, within teams, especially if they're diversity related. It's by
Yeah.
taking that step back and being like, okay, what is it that you actually want to see? What is it that you want to see? And then let's make sure that we all understand those terms before we move forward.
Okay. And those are good questions to ask before you get to the point of moving forward or going live with an upgrade. So those are good questions to ask of not just the team, but especially the stakeholders.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we got some answers for the trends question. This person had said accessibility has been a very big trend lately, Chat GPT as it can be used for project management.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about AI. Is AI something that y'all are seeing become more integrated in project management?
Definitely, it's something that we're talking about. And when I say are talking about, I'm speaking from the project management community about how it's being used in projects. I have not used it in any of my projects, but it's interesting to read the white pages and see how some project teams are enabling that within their teams.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. This person had a little bit more personal of a question. They said, as an African American woman, have you found that you have to prove yourself more than non-African American candidates for PM roles in your career? I mean, I think we probably all know the answer to this, sadly, but in your experience, what has it been?
Very much so. Um, yes. So I'm going to say that I've had some really good managers and some not so good managers, but I've been able to learn from each of them. And whenever I felt like I had to prove myself more, I also had to remember what my own agenda was for this role. What is it that I wanted to get out of this? What skill did I want to get out of it? What type of networking did I want to get out of it? So I had to reverse it a bit to say, what do I want from this? And I spoke earlier about working out loud, and that is really purposefully saying what your successes are, what your wins are. We don't talk about ourselves and the things that we do. We're happy to champion what other people do, but I think sharing your successes, remembering what your goal is for this role. This might not be what you plan to retire doing, but what is it you want to get out of it? It's very easy to feel defeated. So you have to remind yourself to stay focused and remember your own agenda, and not get in your own head.
That's the trick right there, right?
Yeah.
All right. This person also had a follow-up. They wanted to know, how do you address if you're being viewed or labeled as sassy or fierce when you're just being direct and assertive? I think this is one of those things that gets like, it's always such a just, it's so frustrating as a woman in general. And then to know that women of color get hit with this stick numerous other times in different ways is so frustrating. How is this something that you've handled? How have you handled it in your
So I'm going to say I cared about it more earlier in my career than I do now, because now, I don't know if it's age or just experience or both, I can only be myself. I do believe there's time and place, but I also can't change someone's mind or perception about me either. And if that's all I'm trying to do is to change their mind or perception, then I'm going to lose. I want to make sure I'm focused again on my own agenda. Like, maybe I want to get something out of this. Again, reading the room also is important to do as well, because maybe what you said came across aggressively, but what are your emotions involved in it? A lot of times we can do that, not just we as women or as Black women, just people in general. And I think that's important to understand where you are when you're saying what you need to say. And if you did say it aggressively, own that and not apologize for it, but maybe share that you could have said it differently. And then move forward. Again, don't work to change someone's opinion or perception of you. Do the work that you need to do, focus on your own agenda, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I definitely think I get better about as I get older. And part of it is just like, I just don't have the time to care about nonsense anymore. But you're right. I think a lot of it also comes from that experience and knowing that like I am not this one interaction in my career. My
Right.
career is an accumulation of all of these things. And like you said, you can do everything in your power to make a certain impression on people, but you're only going to be able to control that so far.
Mhm.
And I think that's a lesson that I have for sure internalized the older I've gotten, is that like good intentions are great. They
Mhm.
might not get you the entire way there, and that's okay because there's only so much that you can control in life.
Right. I agree.
All right, I have one more question I want to ask you before we run out of time today. This person had wanted to know, do you have any strategies for developing your career, especially within a male-dominated field? I thought this was a very excellent one. And being, within T. Rowe Price and being within, finances and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure you're very familiar with the male-dominated field, like
Mhm.
setup and how that all kind of feels to walk into it.
100%.
Yeah. So what are some of your strategies for developing your career if you are not fitting into the cisgendered straight
Right.
dude agenda?
First, I would say speak up for yourself. A lot of times we sit quietly, not because we don't have anything to say, but because we're waiting for our turn, or we're waiting to um, for a pause to say what we need to say. I'm going to tell you, jump in, speak up for yourself. Some of the in a male dominated environment, like make sure some of those men are part of your mentor network as well, to get an understanding of how they communicate what they're thinking, because a lot of times it's not personal. That's just how it feels or appears. And be confident, even if you're not. Be confident. Be confident. Um, Make sure that your mentor is within your industry as well, because whether it's technology, sales, or something, recruiting, whatever it is, they can understand what you're going through. They can easily relate to maybe the experience that you may have had, and I think that'll help you as well.
Okay, I like this. All right. In the last 3 minutes we have, I wanted to take a little bit of time and save a little bit of time to talk a bit more about T. Rowe Price. When you joined T. Rowe Price from then to now, what has surprised you the most that you've learned since joining them?
The people.
Oh yeah.
The people, when I interviewed and joined, everyone was very nice and welcoming, and I was like, okay, when's this going to change? And it hasn't. So the people are very welcoming and very supportive.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I like that. Now, if people only take one thing from today's session, what do you want that one thing to be that they take with them?
Be yourself.
Okay,
Be authentic.
I like that. Okay. All right. And then the last question that I always enjoy asking people is, what is the one thing that is going to keep you at T. Rowe Price? The one thing that you're not going to find anywhere else that is you're like, nope, I'm sticking because my amazing parking spot or Taco Tuesdays in the lunchroom or, whatever it is. If it can't be the people, what is the thing that
Mhm.
keeps you at T. Rowe Price?
The way the company supports associates, whether it's learning, career growth and development, the way they lean in and support DE&I, that's got me.
Yeah, I always love to hear that. I've gotten to speak with a lot of people from T. Rowe Price, honestly, and it's a very much a recurring thing that people talk about is the attitude and is the collaborative nature, the fact that everybody's they're not in it for themselves, right? They're in it for the team. They're in it to make everything better for everyone around them, which I absolutely love to hear. All right, Tracee, I want to say a huge thank you. I do have a slide here we want to show real quick, just from T. Rowe Price. This is all material that T. Rowe provided. All rights reserved, blah, blah, blah. If you want details on that, you can freeze frame up on this slide. But basically, I want to make sure that we take the last couple seconds here, Tracee, to say thank you to you. There's a ton of prep work that goes into these events, and it is always obvious that the T. Rowe Price team comes beyond prepared. So thank you, Tracee, so much for all the time that you've put in on today's event before today even happened. We really, really appreciate you taking time to share your expertise with us and are just so, so grateful. So thank you so much for all of your time and all of your learnings that you were willing to share with us today.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you, Meg. And I also thank Power to Fly as well.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to bring both of us up on stage here so we can say our quick goodbyes. But I also want to say a big thank you to our audience members as well. Truly, y'all, your participation and you coming here is what makes these events so special. So while obviously I'm grateful that you come to events like this because I have a job, I'm even more grateful that you all took time out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your career. That is not easy. So whether you are a little treat person or not, just listen to Meg, give yourself a cookie, gold star, pat on the back, all three. Maybe don't eat a gold cookie. That seems like a bad idea. But truly, y'all, like, thank you all so, so much for doing something positive for yourselves. If this was your first Power to Fly event, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. And whether this was your 50th or your 500th, I cannot wait to see y'all back here on another event soon. Go off, have the day you deserve to have, and we can't wait to see you back here next week for our June summit. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.